Oh Ben, we can't talk about that, it's too controversial.
Why not?
No, we can't do that.
Yes.
No. Okay then, let's do it. So for me, if it's allowed on a venue, this is my go-to rig. And it wins a lot of matches nowadays. One of the deadliest fish catching methods during the summer month when you get on some fish. Right, so you join me today at the mighty Lindholme Lakes and we're on the Laurels pool. I've sat myself on peg 33 on Laurels, a nice open water peg where we can cover a few methods that we're going to be touching on today. And the methods we're going to be touching on is a very controversial method but a deadly method during the summer months. It's the overshotted rig. Now for me, if it's allowed on the venue, this is something that you need in your armoury. And today I'm going to run you through how I fish that method. Right, so I'm going to run you through what the overshotted rig is. Now the overshotted rig is just generally a normal rig, slightly overshotted, but today we're going to do a session on how you can refine that rig, and I'm going to put it into practice and hopefully can show you a few tips and tricks how I approach it. Right, this is something I want to touch on. Before you start fishing shallow on any venue that you go to, it's really good to find out where you're going to fish shallow. So by that I mean plumbing up your peg and trying to find out where you want to fish your session shallow. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my top kit, I'm going to get my plummet on and have a plumb up at the lake and see and decide where I'm going to fish. What we're looking for generally is probably in these open water lakes especially is the deepest part of your peg. So we're going to do that now. I'll put the plummet on. Now what I'll do is we'll start short and have a little look at what it's like short. See, I'm about a foot up from me top of my float, the top of the body of my float there, and we'll just keep shipping out. Go another couple of sections, see what it's like here. It's so important to try. See, that's same now. So for me, straight away, that's flat going out there at the same depth. But it's so important to try and work out where you're fishing in your peg. Don't just get your shallow rigs out your bag and decide you're going to fish there, because you don't know what depth of water is underneath you. So that's so important as well. Now it's dropped off there now, so obviously we're sloping down. So we've gone nice and flat going out to like 6 metres and we're sloping off. So that's telling me I need to keep going a little bit further out, see what it's like. Now it's a little bit windy today, so I don't want to go too far. I think this is going to be my limit, about 13 metres. Now there you go, that's just gone deeper there. Now once I've got to where I feel like I'm going to fish, just move left and right and just see what it's like around that area. Now for me, that feels about right. I'll just push past a little bit, see if it deepens off a little bit more. Like I say, I don't want to go too far, because you want to try and keep your bait tight to where you're fishing when you're fishing shallow. So that's the same depth, so we've got a nice flat area there, but it's deepened off a little bit. So I think that's where I'm going to fish it, back here at 13 metres for the session today. I'll plumb that up, and then I've got a rig as well for on the bottom, just in case I need to drop on the bottom at any point. There you go. Yeah, it's nice and flat there. Now I've got a nice light plummet on. It does feel a little bit silty, but that's why I like to fish with a nice light plummet as well, so it's not dropping in that silt. There you go, that's nice there now. Feels a little bit of an harder bottom as well. So if I do need to fish on the bottom, I've got this rig set up as well over my shallow line. But that's where we're going to fish the session today at 13 metres. So we'll ship that back, and then what we'll do is we'll get some fishing done. Right, so we're going to touch on baits now. Now I think when deciding what baits you're going to fish shallow, I think there's 3 main baits. I think you've got maggots, casters and pellets. Now, there's a different place for each bait, I feel. So, for instance, if I was going to decide to fish maggots on a venue, I'd try and work out whether there was any small fish in the lake. If there was no small fish, and also wind dependent as well, because if it's dead windy, maggots are really difficult to feed. So that's something else I'd decide before fishing maggots. Now pellets, they can be really good as well. For instance, if you want to fish a little bit longer out in your peg and you want to try and get your bait round your float, pellets are really good for that. Also, there's some carp in the venue as well, a mix of carp and F1s. Pellets can be really good. And when you've got a fishery where there's a load of new stock fish in it as well, stockies and things like that, pellets are really good because they're bred on pellets, so pellets work really well. Now I'm going to be honest with you, if I can get away with it wherever I go, I think casters are going to be my main choice to pick for fishing shallow. I've got some casters today for fishing shallow, some really good casters. Again, I think I touched on my last video, I use lanes for my casters to get the biggest, freshest casters you can. I touched on that on my last video that I did. So today, for today's session, I've chose casters. Also, I come to this venue quite a bit and I know casters work really well, so that's what we're going to be approaching our shallow session around today, is casters. Right, so we've been priming the shallow line for a while now. I've had a little go on it and there's a few fish there, so we're going to start the session and run you through how we do it, and hopefully you can pick up a few tips and tricks. So I'm going in now at 18 inch. I have an array of shallow rigs set up, going from, today I've set them up from 12 inch right up to 3 foot, so I've gone up in 6 inch intervals. I've done 12 inch, 18 inch, 24, 30 and 36 inch, just to cover all my depths. That's really important. But I'm going in at 18 inch deep to start. Feed some casters before you go out. Flick your rig past in front of you on a tight line. Now once you feel like the rig's settled up, you start flicking the rig. Just get into a little bit of a sequence with it. And then you just flick that rig up and down, trying to imitate that bait under the water. It's a little bit windy today, so I'm trying to hold on to the pole a little bit, but I think this is the correct method to be on when it's windy as well. Really difficult with fixed rigs sometimes to get the right presentation, but just try and get yourself into a little bit, get yourself comfortable into a little bit of a sequence. Just keep flicking that rig, and then what I do is I pause for a second while I feed, then lift and drop again, and just keep flicking that rig. You're trying to entice one of them F1s to take the hook bait. And hopefully it won't take long to get a bite. There we go, got one straight away. Now before you ship back, feed some casters. Just trying to build that peg for when you go back out there next, Chuck. This is a big fish, this. Proper pulling some elastic out. Really good elastic, this 10 to 12 red slick. I touched on that in the last video that I did. I use it a lot in short kits for shallow during the summer. Perfect for F1s, but if you do get a carp, it can handle them as well. What I like about this slick elastic is, I've had it loads in the past where if you hook a carp and it bottoms you out, for some reason on that slick elastic, once it's bottomed you out at that point where you feel like it's going to break you, it's just got that little bit of extra stretch. And you can get them fishing that were on maybe on a hollow elastic, you'd end up getting broke or you'd lose. So that's what I really like about this elastic as well. What is this? This may be a carp. It's a big fish. It's pulling back. It's massive F1, huge this one, like £5. Felt like a carp. Pulling like a carp, it's going mad. There we go. That's a big one. They're the ones you want, especially in a match. Massive, he's about £5 in. Lovely looking fish. I love Lindholm. Another one of my favourite venues. I come to a lot in the summer for the big money matches again. And I come on a lot of the 5-day festivals here. Aaron runs some cracking 5-day festivals. He has the May Festival and the Summer Festival. I come on them. I'm on the May Festival in a couple of weeks' time, so this is probably a sneaky little practice as well at the same time. But before you ship out, we'll get back to the fishing. Feed some casters. And again, flick that rig out in front of you. Now, as I touched on, I've gone in at 18-inch deep, and I've caught one, so that's a good sign. But I've got, like I say, I've got an array of rigs set up. So if you feel like they've dropped deeper on you, just keep working through them rigs, because F1s sit at different depths. They're really crafty things. And you can put this 18-inch rig down, pick your 2-foot rig up, or your 12-inch rig, come higher if you want, and then it'd be solid again. But at the minute, while we started the session, there we go, there's another. But at the minute, while we started the session, we're just trying to work out actually what depth they do want to be at. It's another big F1 this. But you can't complain, I've just gone in at 18-inch and 2 fish straight away. Now, it's a very controversial rig this, the overshotted rig. But for me, if the venue allows it, there's no other, or no better way I should say, of catching them. Even better than fixed rigs, because I believe on fixed rigs that F1s are that quick, they suck in your bait and they spit it out, and you don't even register some of your bites on a fixed rig. Where on this overshotted rig, you're constantly lifting and dropping the rig, and every fish you catch is in the mouth. So for me, if it's allowed on a venue, this is my go-to rig. And it wins a lot of matches nowadays. Right, I'm going to give you a few little tips about my setup when you're shallow fishing. I think what's really important is being organised. Having things to hand so you can be quick and efficient, because when you get on them fish, you've got to be quick. So we'll go through a few things that I think are important. Now, we'll start with your rollers. The first one is having your rollers in the correct position. So I've got 2 rollers set up today at 13 metres. I've got one at about 5 metres back from myself, and then I've got another one at the back end of my pole at a nice height, so I can ship my full pole in and out nice and quick. So that's something that I think is really important, having your rollers in the correct position. And also what's important as well about it is when you ship off your rollers, so you come off your back roller, you've just dropped off your back, then you're onto your front roll, you want it so it's onto your knees, so it's coming across your knees nicely, then you can ship out nice in one, you're not tangling your rig out and you're fishing. So I think that's important, your rollers. So that's one. Now, another one is having your nets in the correct position, so you can just put fish in your net nice and quick, get to your landing net nice and easy. I'm left-handed, so I'm a little bit cack-handed, so we have my net on the same side that I'm fishing, but it's there, I can grab it nice and quickly. You keep nets in the correct position so you can put fish in your net quick. And then another one that I think is really important, because obviously I've got quite a few different shallow rigs set up. I have all my shallow kits on my roost kit, and then I have them organised, so I start from my deepest rig up to my shallow, just so I know where they are, and I can pick them all up and put them back in the same place during the day, and I'm not getting all muggled up with them all, and then I'm like wasting time looking for the right shallow rig at that moment. So yeah, that's my tips that I think is important for your setup, and hopefully that can help you out on the bank. Right, so we've just had one at 18-inch deep. I'm going to ship back out now. I always like to get my pole to around about 5-6 metres, where I'm comfortable here, it cross my knees and on my first roller, just so I can let go of my pole and feed some casters before I ship out. And when you get to the point where you are on your pole, flick your rig past and then just let it all in a tight line past, let it all come back and tighten up on itself. I've had it loads in the past when there's quite a lot of fish there, they'll pull your elastic out on the drop as it, because you've got a tight line flicking it past. But if not, and you come to that point where your rig's settled up, just start flicking the rig, lifting and dropping, lifting and dropping. What you're doing when you're lifting and dropping is you're making some noise on the water. I think that draws some fish into your peg as well, with that little flick off the water. You've just got to try and get it into a bit of a rhythm with it. What's making it a little bit difficult today is the wind. Just holding on to your pole, because I'm trying to sort of like, the wind's coming from right to left, so I'm sort of like clinging onto my pole a little bit. But we're managing it. Again, just stop, pause, while you feed. Now what's happening is, with this overshotted rig under the water, I've got a 5-inch hook length on this. I'll tell you what we'll do, I'll run you through the whole rig actually. So we'll run you through my main line's 018 power micron. My float that I've got on today is an F1 shallot, a 0.1, the lightest one that Matrix do in the floats. You need to fish a light float just so you can get away with putting the least shot you can get on it, but overshotting the float so it sinks. Now my hook length is a 5-inch hook length, and then that's of 014 power micron with a 16s MXC6 with a bait band on. That's the Matrix super soft bait bands. Like I say, I think I touched on my last video, I like using them super soft bait bands. They're really good, they don't pop your casters when you're fishing casters. So that's the rig. Now this float probably takes about 2 or 3 number 11s to shot it normally, and I've got it shotted with 4 number 10s today. That'll slightly overshot the float and sink it. Now I did mention I've got a 5-inch hook length on. The reason why I like to fish with a 5-inch hook length is because when you've got your loop to loop, and then your bulk, you put your bulk on top of your loop, your bulk is 6 inch away in total, and I think that is where you need to have your bulk when you're fishing this overshotted rig. So when you flick your rig up and down, it like lifts your hook length up, so it gives that little split second of natural fall of the hook bait for the F1s to take the bait. I've had it before where I used to fish with a 3-inch hook length and have my bulk on top of a 3-inch hook length, and I don't feel like the rig works the same. So that's my setup basically. My elastics, the 10 to 12 red slick, I have that in all my short kits, and all my other rigs are exactly the same rigs, just all duplicated. But when I drop down to my deeper rigs, I add more shots to it, and then I string them shots out, just so then it keeps a tight line. But when I move on to them rigs in a bit, I'll touch on them ones for you. But at the minute, we'll keep going at this 18-inch deep, and if I feel like I need to drop down or come up, then we will do so accordingly, till we find what depth the fish are at. So we're fishing at 18-inch, and I feel like the bite, I'm not getting as many indications now. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to ship back and drop a bit deeper. Just feed some casters before I ship back, and then we'll pick my 2-foot rig up and try at 2 foot. Put this rig back on the roost. Pick up that 2-foot rig. Again, like I touched on, exact same setup, nothing different. This 2-foot rig's still on a bulk on top of my hook length. It's once I go past 2 foot, then I start stringing my bulks out. I know this rig is a very controversial rig, but it is quite a technical rig as well. And for me, one of the deadliest fish catching methods during the summer month when you get on some fish. A lot of matches nowadays are won with this overshotted rig, where the venues allow it. So for me, if it's allowed, it's a must, it's got to be fished. Again, I did the same thing, shipped out, flick the rig past, and then just get into a rhythm of flicking that rig, pausing while you feed. There you go. So I've just gone from 18-inch to 2 foot, caught one straight away. Just be active with changing depths. Don't just think you can set a shallow rig up at 18-inch and that's your only rig you need. You don't. You need an array of rigs. and catch your big F1s like this. Big golden F1s, lovely fish. Right, so I've just got another quick tip for you. It's on top kits this time. So today I've got 5 or 6 top kits out here on my roost kit, but when I'm in a match situation, I have quite an array of kits out, so I've got quite a lot of shallow kits. Now to set them up on the bank takes quite a bit of time, so what I do when I'm at home preparing is I set them all up on the short kits, all my shallow rigs on short kits, ready to go, and I pop them in a top kit case. So then when you get onto the bank, you're one step ahead of the game and you've got them all set up and you can line them up in order and you're prepared. That just puts you one step ahead and you can concentrate on other methods and other things setting up. There we go, there's another one at 2 foot. So it just shows by changing depth has made a massive difference to my catch rate. Just got to get yourself into a rhythm with shallow fishing. Look at him on the big F1 at 2 foot. And then when you find them at that depth, just don't feel the need to change until starts to fade on you a little bit, then maybe come back, pick another rig up, try a different depth. Crafty little things they are, but if you get it right, you can catch them. Again, caster in the band. What I do is I have all my top kits marked up. I've got these stickers that stick on. I got them off eBay. I find them really good. I think that's another important thing that you need as well, just so you can see what depth you're catching them at. Make sure everything's in the right position as well, with the markers on the top kit. So fed twice, flip that rig out. That's another important thing, flicking it out past in a tight line. Catch them big F1s that hang off the back of your feed. And then when your rig's settled up, just get into that rhythm of flicking that rig up and down and feeding. I've just had 2, we had one at 18-inch deep, there's another one now. I think it's a skim bob, this one. Feels like a skimmer. Definitely a silverfish. Yeah, skim bob, I think. No, little F1. Felt like a skimmer him. Another F1. I could have swore that was a silver then. So you can see we've got everything right. No need to change anything. Be alright if that wind stayed like that now. It's perfect. It's a nice little ripple on the lake. You don't want it too flat. You do want a bit of a ripple when you're shallow fishing, but not too windy. But I'm going to keep going at this now at 2 foot until I feel like it's the need to change, maybe change depth. What I do is when I'm feeding casters, when I'm not fishing the line and I'm priming it, I seem to feed a little bit more just to try and build your peg. And then when you're actually in your peg fishing, just cut it back a little bit so you're not feeding as many casters. There you go, there's another one. This is the depth, this one now. You can just tell we're at the right depth. I've got everything right. Big fish this. Let's feed some more casters. What I like about this slick elastic is, this 10s to 12s, the red, it's soft. So when you do up one, they come straight out your peg and they're not making no disturbance in your peg neither. That's humongous again. And you can just see this elastic's angling it really well. There we go. Nice. But I think I'm just going to keep fishing at 2 foot now, and yeah, until I feel the need to change, I won't be doing anything different. Right, we're having a fantastic day here at Lindholme Lake so far. Now, last time out with the cameras at Tunnel Barn Farm, I asked you a question, and it was, where should we go for a live match? Because I'm going to do a live match. Now, I personally had a look through the comments, and I think a couple of them was Western Pools. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, Western's my favourite venue as well. So we've decided that next time we go out with the cameras, I'll be doing a live match at Western Pools. So I'm excited about that one, and hopefully you can keep an eye out and see that. And also as well, while we're on, I'd just like to ask you another quick question. This time it is, I was brought up on the rod and line skimmer fishing for silvers, and then I moved over to the commercial side of it, and I'm really enjoying that now. But what do you prefer? Do you prefer fishing for silvers or fishing for F1s and carp on commercials? Drop a comment in the comments below and I'll have a little look at them as well. Right, we've been fishing away at 2 foot up for a while. We've had a really good run on that, but it sort of started to fade out a little bit on me, so I decided to come up a little bit just to try it, see if they was sat really high, shallow. I tried 12-inch deep shallow, but I didn't have an indication on it, so that's telling me that they obviously want to sit a little bit deeper today. So what I've done is I've picked up my 30-inch rig. So I've dropped down 6-inch deeper from my 24-inch rig, which is 2 foot, and see how we get on with this one now. I do feel like they're sat a little bit deeper today, but I'm doing no different again. I've just fed some casters, flipped my rig out on a tight line. It's just repeating the process, just at a different depth. And hopefully it won't take long to get a bite. There we go. We're in. Throw your shit back, feed some casters. It's been very evident today that everything's wanted to be at 2 foot or deeper. They won't come right up. Maybe when you get more numbers of fish into your peg, they will come higher up in the layers, but at the minute, they're not. But by having all them rigs set up, has helped me to find them at the depth they want to be at, and that we're now catching them. Another lovely F1. I've had a nice day of F1s. It's been really good. Make sure them bolts are in the correct position. One on top of my ute length, my other one 6-inch above that. Again, caster in the band. I just slide them in with my fingers. Them super soft bait bands that Matrix do. The hole's perfect. You can just literally just push a caster in. Feed some casters. Just try and prime that line before you go out. Get to your 30 metre and flick your rig past again in a tight line. Let everything settle up, then lift, drop. Just flick the rig. There we go, we're in again. Straight away. Feels like another good fish. Oh, he's pulling some. Get another big F1. You can see how deadly of a tactic it can be. Very quick at building weights when you can get them shallow on this overshotted rig. and it's just something you have to be on when everybody else is fishing it, otherwise you're one step behind. Now if I was fishing maggots on this line, I know we're not fishing maggots today or pellets, but if we was, I'd be doing nothing different. It'd be exactly the same feeding pattern, exactly the same tactics, so don't think that you need to do something different if you're fishing a different bait. Just exactly the same process. The bait is just what we touched on earlier, just to decide what we're going to fish on the venue that we're going to. It's been a real battle with this wind. 1 minute it's ripping through really bad, then the next minute it's all right. But I think that's why that double bulk helps as well on that deeper rig, just to keep that line tight, especially with the wind as well. Right, so we've had a fantastic day here today at Lindholm Lakes on the Laurels Lake. We're into another big F1. They've actually come right up into 12 inch now. I did predict that once we've built the peg and it got better and better, and there's more numbers of fish there, they'd come up. But I've had a fantastic day's fishing. I've really enjoyed it. We've put into practice the overshotted rig, and hopefully you can take a few tips and tricks away with you from it. Like I say, it's a really controversial rig, but a deadly fish catching rig, and it's something that you have to use on a venue when everybody else is using it, because the fish catching rate of it is just nigh on unbeatable at times. So for me, going forward, I'll definitely still be using this rig. It's brilliant, but I'm going to carry on fishing now and enjoy the rest of my day.